Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and at the end of this week we get the new star decks here in North America for the One Piece card game. Not only do I think they're good for newer players trying to get into One Piece for the first time, but there's honestly just some really great cards that they're printing in these, and I think there's some cool deck building choices and some new decks that are going to be pretty viable because of this release. So in this video I do want to go over some of the decks I've been working on. Nothing 100% complete, but some good like next steps for anyone who wants to upgrade the star decks that they got for this one too. So but before we start, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Also, we've updated Eggman's events to have this structure deck, starter deck section, where if you guys want to know the exact 50 that go into the box for the Doflamingo one, you can click the button here. It populates the deck list, so this is the exact 50 that's in the box there, and you can find that if you hit home, go to the One Piece section, and then structure deck. So honestly, I have a hard time finding this data at times, and I just decided to compile it myself. So shout outs to Chippy as well for making this add to the deck builder, and this is for One Piece and all the other card games that we support. We added all the star decks there, so make sure to check it out. And then also, if you guys want any of the deck lists we're talking about today, or any of the other deck lists I've been working on for One Piece or my team, there is a link in the description for our team deck page. So all the decks are going to be here. We're going to continue to update these, so the video might be a little bit outdated at times, but this will always be as up to date as we can make it too. So and before we go over the decks, I do want to just kind of go over my thoughts in general, just pretty surface level. But if you guys are just interested on knowing what deck is best out of the box, this is my just general thing. I'll have a tier list for OP08.5 in a couple days as well, but if you are just newer to the game and you just want like a good basis and just a very opinionated take, here it is. So Dofi and Purple Luffy, probably the two best ones out of the box as is. Both these I think are going to be pretty generically good as is, with just a little bit of additional support cards. The decks are very viable. The cards they get are really good, and most of them are just like you use most of the new cards and then a couple additional ones. So I think both these decks are going to be competitive in the realized meta of 8.5, and it's going to be in a good spot. So we got those two there. We also have playable, so Smoker and Newgate. I think both these decks are good, and I think these leaders are good too, but I also think some of the cards that we have in these decks do better in potentially other ones. I do think like the Hina that we get in Smoker, which we'll talk about when we get there, is a good generic black deck that a lot of black leaders do appreciate, the option getting that one extra Dawn every turn. And then also there is Newgate, where I think the deck is still fine for Newgate too, but Marco's got my eye a little bit more. It's also a Whitebeard Pirates card. I think the 7-drop Newgate is fantastic and works way better with Marco than with Newgate, and there's just some really good synergies with that there. And then for limited, we have Katakuri and Uta. I don't really feel like the cards from these decks really go to other decks that often, and they're really just kind of for those leaders, and I think these leaders are just okay. They're not unviable. I think people are going to be able to do well with both these leaders in this meta, but they're not the same level as Dofi or Purple Luffy, and they just the cards aren't like generically as good for them, which we'll go over when we see the deck list. But don't let me stop you from getting the deck list that you want or the star deck that you want either. But if you are just trying to be on like, again, another surface level idea of what deck is best if I want to try to get into this game, I think Blue Dofi and Purple Luffy are probably two of the better ones for that. So anyways, we're going to jump into my deck list in general. Again, these are just deck lists that I have specifically for Dofi too. I know a lot of people have put a lot of time into this deck, and this is just a basic version of it. There's way better videos I think out there if you want specifically knowledge on Dofi, but if I was to play this deck right now, it'd probably look pretty similar to this one. So generically, as mentioned, Dofi just got so many good cards from its starter deck. The good ones include the Boa Hancock. So this is a blocker 4-drop 6k, which lets you rearrange the top cards of your deck and give an additional Dawn to your leader if it's 7 warlords of the C type. So it does help other leaders too, which we'll talk about in a minute, but this card's just fantastic. I think this one is very, very good, and only kind of matched with the Trafalgar Law that we get from this one. So on play, you can return one of your characters to its owner's hand. If your leader has 7 warlords of the C type, return up to 1 4 cost or lower character to the owner's hand. So the fact that you get to bounce something back is great. The second card can be on either side, so there are a lot of times where I have like a Perona and a Buggy out on the board, and it lets me bounce both back, so I can use them for counter power later. It's a really good tempo card, and it's great for the deck too. So it really, you know, Dofy's really all about playing out as many 4-drops as we can, be very tempo oriented. And Trafalgar Law to, again, bounce a 1-drop back to my hand to bounce a 4-drop back to my opponent's hand really helps that out. And then lastly, the new cards, we have the Crocodile. So on play, reveal the top card of your deck. If that card has the 7 Warlords of the Sea type, you get to draw 2 and place 1 card from your hand on top of your deck. So honestly, in practice, this card is not as great as I thought, but it's still very good. I think it's something that's great. If you already know the top card of your deck, you're able to draw 2, put 1 back, and then you can put something back. It's like if you need to like change up the card that you want to play off your leader effect. So this one's still really good. You definitely still play it at 4 copies, but Boa and Trafalgar Law are definitely the 2 kind of best ones from there. So other than that, I think it's pretty generic what we add for it. Son Goku's been an add since it's another 1-drop that you can bounce back to your hand with Law, and it finds our pieces. We really like Jinbei is like such a good card for this deck. It's really the reason it's able to take off, I think, is as hard as it can. And if your opponent sees 2 Jinbeis with like 2 Weevils, at times you just lose. Like there's not a lot you can do when they put out so much advantage without like losing card advantage either. So we've got Pudding, which you can bump up to 3 or 4 copies if you want to see that card a little bit more. We've got Jozu, which is more of a tech add. You don't have to play this card, but kind of like a big brother version of Trafalgar Law is very good. It's a Whitebeard Pirate. It's not a 7 Warlords, but still good there. And then Dofy, 3-drop, it's still good. We play it like 2 copies just if we need a blocker sometimes, but we have so many different ways to look at the top cards of our deck that it's not as neat as it used to. So and some other leaders to kind of talk about with all this stuff. We do have a couple other 7 Warlord leaders. Primarily, I think Boa is the one that people are thinking about immediately. The fact that we're able to use this in our deck, we're able to get the additional Dawn to it. And then we also have like the Trafalgar Law, which bounces cards back to hand, which means we can use the effect with Boa to be able to get the additional card draw. So that could be really handy for it. Obviously more defensive than offensive like Dofy, but can be there too. And we have 2 Crocodile leaders. This one, like neither's like bad necessarily, right? They both could work with the deck as well, I think. The fact that we also have the Femur, I think this is one of the better cards for 7 Warlords as well. The fact that you're able to give your leader unblockable and plus 2k, so you don't even lose out on Dawn. Being able to put that on your leader is like the best way to use this card. So I think that can definitely be used with Dofy. And we also have like the blue purple Dofy, right? If you want to like play the 4-drop Boa and then you get a Dawn underneath your leader and then you play like a 0-cost event, you get the card draw. I'm not saying it's great, but it's something that kind of exists for it. So other than that, there's, you know, it's really strict to kind of like the Warlord stuff. So, but honestly, like this Dofy leader is one of the best leaders in the game, so some direct support for this deck is really good. So this is the build that I have here, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Next up, we've got the purple Luffy, and I think this deck is super fun. I've been saying it for a while, but this is a deck that didn't really have an archetype on release in OP05 a year ago, and then it just kind of was like a good generic purple deck for the pieces that it had. So now it's kind of like reversed, where it has like a really generic package that's for the deck, but a lot of other leaders can take advantage of it too. So probably the best card is the Monkey D. Luffy, or Luffy Taro, as it's probably going to get translated to. On play, Dawn -1, play up to 1 purple Straw Hat type character with a cost of 5 or less from your hand, which can include the new copy of the Sangoro. Being able to use this to attack and draw a card later is really good. It's also like, it's just once per turn, so if they never remove this card, you get a free card draw every turn, which is really strong in this card game. We also have the Zorojuro, which is stupid good as well. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 purple Straw Hat crew, add it to your hand, then you can place the rest at the bottom. It can find itself, it can find Luffy, it can find most of the cards in your deck. Like the fact that this there's just so many good purple Straw Hat cards, like half of our deck is purple Straw Hat. Like you can find almost every card in your deck, which is super good for this card. All of our at least good consistency pieces. And then we also have Usohachi. This is, whether you play this deck or not, you need to be aware that this card exists for any purple deck. If you have 8 or more Dawn, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a 5 or less. On play, it's a 2k and it's a purple Straw Hat crew, right? Like there are so many decks that are playing like Sheep's Horn to be able to get like kind of the same effect on the Sabo. And for 1 Dawn more, you get a 2k that's searchable, that's just really impactful for it. So you do have to have 5 or 8 or more Dons, so that can be a little bit tricky in some builds, but this card is so good, especially in Luffy. And if your opponent's just playing out Sabo, hoping that's enough, there's a lot of ways that you just win on the other side. So we also have like the Nami. This is like the worst card, but it's still really good, being able to be kind of like a blocker that lets you trash 1, draw 2. So like a worse copy of Queen, but Queen's still really good. And you can obviously play it off your Luffy. You have to have 8 or more Dawn after the -1, so which is a little bit tricky on curve to do so. But like if you're playing like the second Luffy Taro, it's really good there. So other than that, we've got like our generic good blockers. We've got some more 2Ks. We've got Bond Clay, which this card is pretty expensive. If you don't have it, there's some really good options for it, like Magellan, or like I know a lot of people before were playing Poly, and a lot of like the good generic purple cards you can still play. You can still play Magellan, you can still play Poly if you want to. I just like having like the guaranteed ramp without having to take cards from my life, which makes it easier against like some more aggressive decks to be able to take control. So, and then we just have our 4 Emperor kind of top end of like the Big Mom, the Linlin, and the 1 copy of the Secret Luffy. I like this card like 1 copy since it's searchable and a boss monster. If you don't like it, you can take it out, but I do like the idea of it. So regardless, here's my list here. And if you want some other stuff too, there's no restrictions for any of these cards. None of these cards say if you're a purple Straw Hat leader or anything. The only thing that it restricts is finding other purple stuff, so you can't like mix and match colors with it. But all of this stuff is generic. You can play all this stuff in pretty much any deck that's purple. So I've tried it a couple other builds. I've tried it with like the what is it? We had it with the Pudding. We've had it with King, which are both on my deck list. Or that's not this King. Now the big thing you want is that you want to be able to be at, if you go second, you want to be able to ramp, right? So being able to, like Luffy, being able to go first and double ramp to 7 to be able to play your Luffy Taro out quicker is really strong, which is why it's like one of the better versions for this. But there are some other decks that ramp a little bit, right? We've got like the Pudding, which helps us ramp 2. We have like the Kaido or any of the Animal Kingdom pirate leaders, so which is why I tried King. You can use Onigashima to get some additional ramp there. I've thought about Uta as well, especially since red and purple works really well with Straw Hats, because you can play 1-drop Nami and it finds the entirety of your deck at the early games. So which is why I also think like Yusa's Kid could maybe finally be relevant. Maybe we'll find out. And then also like red purple Luffy, which I have a build for as well. So honestly, I think this package is really good. I think a lot of other decks can try it out and see if there's a build that's equally good. And but I've really been enjoying this one. So here's the purple Luffy there. All right, next up we've got the Smoker, and Smoker's been pretty good. I think this deck is really viable in a lot of ways. The only issue that I kind of have with it is that I think that straight up that Lucci's still just a better deck, right? It just gets more removal, and it's just like a better, like it gets advantage from Moria better. Like our best Moria play is like a Rob Lucci or Brook kind of combo, but nothing is like good as like the Rob Lucci like max combo for it. So I still think you can play this deck and you can be really successful with it, but I do find like you're a little bit lacking compared to Lucci at times. Lucci just kind of rolls a lot higher than it. But the new cards that we get that are really impactful, 1, Toshigi. This card's, I'm going to say, like, this card's stupid. Like they printed this card because they said, we want you guys to play Smoker. It's a 5-drop 6K. It's a 1K counter. And then it gives something -4 on play, and then pops something with a cost of 0. So if you're at 5 Dawn, you get to play it and get rid of whatever your opponent played, because it doesn't KO the card, it puts it in the trash. So you can get rid of a Borsalino. If they played Sabo last turn and at 5 and you're at 6, so you can play Toshigi on your 6, 5, give it -4, make it cost 1. Then we can use the Dawn underneath our Smoker leader to make it cost 0, get the +1K in our leader, and then Toshigi can still put it into our trash. So obviously only works for Smoker, but it's also like a 1K counter. Like this card is absurdly good. It's very great for this deck, and the only issue with it is that you can only play 4 copies of it, and that is pretty rough for this deck. It really comes down to, did you see your Toshigi or not? And if you didn't, you're pretty behind. And if you did, you've got a 5-drop 6K that's able to help you carry through most of the game. So I think this deck is good from there as well. We also have like the Sengoku, which I think is good in other maybe Navy leaders a little bit better for helping you. Like this, just being able to play this at 4 copies and being able to play brand new at 4 copies means that you can pretty easily see these on like your first or second turn and use that to fill up your trash, and then kind of use that as fuel for the rest of the game. We're so used to like Gecko Moria and Rob Lucci being able to put cards into their trash for free off their leader effect, but the Navy leaders have kind of fallen behind with that. So being able to use this as a Navy leader, being able to draw 3, get some cycle to maybe find your Morias and other impactful cards a little bit better that aren't searchable, I think is really good for this deck. And then like even late game, you can play Son Goku and you can fix your hand if you've got like a bunch of Kuzons and like other non-counters in hand, which is really cool. So I do like the addition of that. And then lastly, Hina. I don't think Smoker can really take advantage of this card as best as other leaders, but the fact that you're able to like this obviously seems really good in Star Deck Luffy, which I've made decks for as well, but being able to put a Dawn underneath your leader every turn can be really impactful as well, which I think is interesting for this. So it's like putting a card from our Trash the Bomber deck is kind of expensive early game, but then really trivial late game, and that helps out I think a lot of stuff for this deck and others. So other than that, this is the build we've been working on. I've been trying this a lot of these stuff in a lot of other decks too. I think outright like Star Deck 14 Luffy, which I do have a build of that on my page, being able to make your an 8K body on turn 3 is fantastic, and help you get the Dawn to make it so you're a 6K leader for the rest of the game essentially does help this deck a lot too. But there are some other leaders too. Specifically I've been looking at Garp as well as Sabo. I think both these get a good amount of boost from these cards existing. On turn 4 you can play out your Hina, you can use the effect, put the Dawn underneath Sabo, and then you've got your Sabo effect for the rest of the game for free, right? That's the idea for it. Your opponent's not going to be able to remove your Hina with a leader effect or any other effect. At least they have to use 2 of them, which is kind of expensive, and it's a 6K body, so it's really strong for I think Sabo. And then Garp just being able to get like an additional Dawn underneath your leader, which gets an additional -1 for no cost, is really great, and it works really well with the I think the Son Goku is honestly a really good ad for Garp too, because you get to put 2 cards into your trash really early, really start up your plays, and get some more cycle that you really need. So I think there's some like good stuff for this. I'm really looking forward to trying out Garp and Sabo more. But and there's also like Isho. Isho's a Navy leader that you also want like a Dawn underneath of sometimes. So like the same thing. This gets a free -1 to everything, which can be really impactful. So I really want to try out some Isho games as well. I know Prone is like the premier green black leader, but being able to use Son Goku might be enough for Isho to be a little bit better here. So I don't know. I've obviously been testing this a lot. I think there's some really good cards, and I've been really having a lot of fun with the cards that Smoker have as well. So, but this is the build that I have for the Smoker leader as is. And the next up, we've got Newgate. This leader, obviously, if you guys are new to this game, I can't stress enough how much of a menace this was for the entirety of 2023. Like this was like the deck to beat. This was doing so well, and then it kind of fell off a little bit, right? It still was making some finishes on OP05, OP06. I think OP07 was getting pretty tough for it, and then OP08, it hasn't really done anything quite yet. But I do think like it's fun to see like how much people want this deck back, and how much people like looking back have such a love for it, which is interesting. But it does get a lot of cool new cards with it, and they've kind of switched it to a little bit of one, like we've got this Atmos here. So this card says, when attacking your leader is Edward Newgate, you cannot add life cards to your hand using your own effects during this turn. So it means that you turn off your end of turn effect, which is sometimes a benefit, sometimes a detriment, but being able to play a 4-drop 5K body that your opponent has to respect, and make it so you don't lose a life, I think is good. In some situations you save it, sometimes you don't. The fact that it's a 5K is kind of rough. I would have wanted this to be a 4-drop 6K with no counter than a 4-drop 5K with counter, because I think if we attack with it, that means we're a 5K body, which means your opponent's leader sometimes has stuff to swing into, right? The biggest kind of thing with Newgate is that if your opponent plays on curve, most leaders aren't able to attack into Newgate because they are a 5K instead of a 6K. So you get out of a lot of free damage from there, and then also Atmos. So which is the why like 4-5 is kind of rough for it. So, but I think there's like some good cards. We have so many like search capabilities with Izo, which is really good for the deck. And then we do have like the new stuff. We're not playing 7-up Newgate in this deck, which will here. I didn't do this for any others, but I love Marco so much. It's super fun. This deck, this card is super good as well. Being able to use the effect to make it so you get like a Dawn and your leader on play, so you can play it on curve and still get some leader effects, and then being able to get rid of a 5k or less, which if you put the Dawn underneath your leader and use that effect, it becomes a 7k or less. And not a lot of decks have protection against like power reduction removal, which I think is really impactful. So other than that, we do also have like the new Ace, which is a rush card for our leader, 5-drop 6k. A lot of people would play like the Luffy in the deck. It's also a 1k counter, which is crazy. It also has like a protection effect once per turn if they're trying to remove it the hard way. So I think that's, and it's free. Like there's no, like you have to lose minus 2k with it, but it's not like an issue either way. So I think that's important. 7-drop Ace is still good. And then we got our big 9-drop and then the events to help save us. So last other card is King Do, so blocker, and then opponent's turn. When this card is KO'd by your opponent's effect, up to one of your leaders gets plus 2k during this turn. So you become like an 8k leader, which is really obnoxious. 10k leader if you played like the 3-drop Newgate previously, or sorry, the 9-drop Newgate previously. And it's just like a really solid blocker for the deck too, which I think is cool. So other than that, I don't think there's I mean, we've got some other like red leaders we can use with. Honestly, half of them are the ones we talked about in the black side, like of the ones that kind of need some Dawn to do some things. Like again, Garp and Sabo is really good. The fact like you can play Newgate on curve, use the effect to put the Dawn underneath Sabo, get rid of a 5k, which even without cost reduction, a lot of decks are playing a lot of 5ks, and then being able to protect your Newgate effect but by having the Sabo out, I think is good at a couple copies. Everyone wants Dawn. We also have like this Sabo as well, which we can use the effect, and then we can add like a card to our life. So like you could play Newgate and then use the effect and then heal with it if you want to, which is interesting. And then obviously Marco, which we've talked about. So even like Dragon doesn't mind like having a Dawn, and then you can move it to someone else. So I think red's always been like a really big like Dawn manipulation color, and so there's a lot of decks that would appreciate it on the body. Because you can also like give it to like Luffy just having like an additional Dawn. You can become a 7k with both these on curve, and there's just like a lot of fun stuff we get to do with it. So I think the only thing is that like there's not a lot of decks that have like the reduction, but we do have like this Uta, which you could ramp up to the Newgate and then like discard a card, and then you can get rid of a 5k and then ramp a Dawn from 7 to 8. That could also be kind of impactful. So I don't know. But I think like the card pool for Newgate's pretty interesting. Maybe not the leader itself is the best with it, but I really do appreciate the cards we get from it. So there we go there. And then wrap it up, we've got our two other decks. We've got Uta and Katakuri. So Uta, this is the build I've been running. It's just like a 50 film kind of package, 51 with the leader, in case you're curious. But I think this deck does have some good power with it. We do have this Uta, and we haven't really mentioned, but if you haven't noticed, most decks and every color has a new card that says you can put a Dawn underneath your leader on curve, which I think is super powerful as a concept, and a lot of decks really do appreciate being able to get that extra Dawn in case you need to play something on curve, but you need that Dawn for like a leader effect or something. But it's a 4/6 blocker, which is good, and then activate main. Once per turn, you can trash one film type card from your hand to give up to your leader, or one of your characters up to one rested Dawn. So I think that's really great for the deck. This is good for Uta specifically because we can play this on 4, discard a card that we don't need, and then we can use the Uta when attacking leader effect, and also be a 6k, which is pretty nice. So I think that helps out a lot. We also have the Shanks, which is generically just a really good card. Being able to use this to get rid of any rested card was really nice for decks like Bonnie, which can rest things. And then a 9k or 9-drop 11k body is also super strong in those decks too. And then we also have like just our generic like Luffy combo. We've got Brook. We have like a new copy of 2k, which is just fine. It becomes a 4k. And then also this Katakuri. This Katakuri is actually pretty interesting. It becomes a 3-drop 6k pretty easy. So if your leader is film type and you have 6 or more rested cards, this character gets plus 2k power, and it's on both players' turns. So not too terribly hard to do that, and it's really good on curve. So you can play Brook, you can play it, and then you'll have rested Dawn for it pretty easy. So other than that, we do have like the I'm Invincible, which is a great ender for a lot of games. We have Backlight at 3 copies, and then the new Genesis at 4. So I think the deck is like really simple to build and have a concept for, but on execution it's a little bit trickier. But you get so much card draw and cycle. The fact that like this just says draw 1 in this build specifically, I think is really powerful too. So we got that. And then also we do have a couple like other green decks that, again, like Ucha's like the weirder one where you don't really have like, you have to run the film deck to be able to get like the additional Dawn attached to it, and there's not like a lot of great decks that can kind of use it, right? Like the extra Dawn is like generically good, but like we have like, I don't know, like Zoro and Sanji is like the one I thought about the most. Like you can put it when attacking, you can turn one of your cost 2 or higher characters to the owner's hand. Then you set up to one of your power 7k or less to active. So you can like attack with something, and then like you can play the Uta, and then you can bounce the Uta back. Like I guess you don't even have to bounce the Uta back, but being able to like just get that cycle with it, it's fine. I don't like, people have been talking about this deck forever, and it's never really done a lot, but I think like being able to have like an Uta, or if you're playing like the film package, you could take advantage of it. But I've had a hard time finding like some cool like deck building choices for the cards we get from Uta outside of just the Uta deck, which is kind of why I ranked it a little bit lower than the rest. So, but that's the build here, and I hope you guys enjoy the Uta. And then lastly, we got Katakuri. This deck doesn't even like really use the cards that we get from the deck either. I think the best card is like this Katakuri, which there could be some generic ways to use this. It's block or activate main once per turn. You can return the top card of your life. You may turn the top card of your life cards face up to give up to one of your characters one rested Dawn. So being able to do that is great. The idea that you can use it with your leader and then make a 7k attack. So if you're on the odd curve, you can play this for 5. Use the effect to put it underneath your leader, and then you have 7k and you get to look at the top of either player's life. So that's not too shabby for it. And then it's just like the same build that we've been kind of like incrementally building for Katakuri since release, right? A lot of cards that play off of life. So we got the 4 Kiko Nojo and the 2 copies of Nekomamushi. We have like the new ad from OP08, which is the Nami. So the fact that this is kind of like a better Gadatsu, which lets us be aggressive and still get rid of a 5 or less, is really great. And the like ability off of life is better than Gadatsu. The only issue is that's a 5k instead of a 6k, but still pretty strong there. For 2K, this is more just kind of showing off the new card, but we got the Brule. Our better 2Ks are obviously like the Beige as well as the Satori. If you like the Frankie, you can also add the Frankie too, but I wanted like a 2K that we would add to the deck for, just so our pudding can find a 2K, or our Peros Barrow could find a 2K. So Brule. The trigger says look at the top card of your opponent's life and put it at the top or bottom of their life, and then you get to add this card to your hand. So you have to show off that you're adding a 2K to your hand, but or if you don't want, you can just add the 2K. You can add it without using the trigger effect. But if you want to make it so like your opponent, if you need to rearrange their life, which comes up in like Black Yellow Luffy sometimes, or like if you want to be able to like manipulate it, you can definitely do it. So it's an interesting card there. You can also use it for your own life, but I think you do it on I guess you could use it on your own life if you weren't expecting it for the next turn. So if you have like 2 life and you don't know your bottom life is, and you look at the top one and you see it's like the 0 cost, you can put it at the bottom. So there's reasons to play it, I guess. So other than that though, it's pretty generic. I was looking at other like yellow leaders that would take advantage of having like the additional like Dawn. There's like Queen, which you could use, which is like a pretty obnoxious deck for like healing and stuff. And so the fact that we get like a 5 life blocker, we look at the top card of our life, flip it up, and then we can like attack and heal. That can be kind of good for the deck too. It also means like we can play like an if the Katakuri survives, we can play out like a 9-drop or a 10-drop and then use the effect. So that sometimes comes up, I think, if that survives there. Ace kind of appreciates it, but it's kind of in a rough spot because like all your face-up life gets trashed at the end of turn. Kind of the same thing with Luffy. Sabo could maybe appreciate this too, right? You can use its effect to put the Dawn underneath your leader and then use the effect to do the cycle there. So that could sometimes come up. And then like the one that I was actually interested in is the Yamato. So the fact that we're able to like defensively make like a 5/6 and then like use the effect to put the Dawn underneath our leader, and if we go down to 2 life, we can then use it to like we are not like afraid of playing 9 or 10 drops because we're able to keep the Dawn under leader if the Katakuri survives. So this one I felt like was maybe worth mentioning, but I haven't really done any testing with it. So you also use it for Kalgara. Kalgara might appreciate the card, right? We can play it for 5, use the effect, put a Dawn underneath. We look at the top card of our life, and if we need to add it to our hand, or if we need to aggressively do that, we still get to play a blocker out that's a 5/6. So Kalgara probably appreciates it more than other decks, just because of the potential to like play more things on curve, and it's a 5/6 body. There's also like this Lin, which I don't think it's going to work out, despite yellow and black being such a good color combination. It's just like a little bit costly. And then lastly, this Lin, if it was Dawn times 1, it'd be way better, but it's Dawn 2, so it's a little bit expensive. But you can look at the top card, you can draw it and then put something else there. Sometimes it comes up, but it's again just really expensive for you. So I also didn't mention it as much, but the super rare that we got, I think a lot of people are thinking it's not super good for the deck. It's the Charlotte Linland. So on play, you can trash a card from your hand. If your opponent either gets to trash 2 cards from their hand or trash 1 card from the top of their life, they get to choose, which is always worse. Discarding 2 is really nice. This is generically like generic in any deck, but I don't really see anyone using this. I could be wrong, and there could be some really good builds with it. You could also like use it for potentially like pudding as well as like another like Charlotte Linland that you want in the deck, but I haven't really seen people play this. We also have like the Charlotte Cracker that has like some protection, and like the pudding, which being able to set one of your cost 3 or less big mom pirate type characters as active. I don't really know the combo for this. There might be a card I'm missing, but it doesn't seem super good. So I think the card pool for this deck is a little bit lacking, but I think Katakuri can still be very good and still be played in this meta too. So that's going to be it though. Again, if you guys want any of the deck lists in the box, you can check out the website as well as our team deck list for any of the builds we talked about today. And I know we just kind of rambled on a lot, but I really do appreciate all the deck building choices we have right now, and it's really been getting the creative juices flowing. So that's going to be it for me. Let me know you guys are excited for building in this, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.